Can you see my screen, Craig?
I can see the title page.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to give everybody just a minute or two to get on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And we'll give people just another minute or so everybody can get joined in, and then we will get rolling. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the value of PeopleSoft in the cloud. I'm Rob Mowat, and I've got Craig Oliver with me, and we'll be giving you the presentation today and sharing some, hopefully some insightful things for you guys to think about and consider as you're looking at putting PeopleSoft in the cloud environment. So what we're going to run through today is just a brief introduction to Craig and myself. Just a snapshot about MyPro, certainly not a commercial, but just enough so you know who we are and what we do, so you've got an idea of who's talking to you. And then we're going to kind of go through just some considerations and the value of using PeopleSoft in the cloud. We're going to focus largely on the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, just because that's the environment that we feel, generally speaking, is going to be the best environment. But most of these things will apply to any cloud platform that you might want to consider. There will be some things that are specific to OCI, so you'll see those as well. And then we're going to transition from there into a customer story, talk about the state of Oklahoma, their experience in moving from an on-premise to the OCI environment, some of the benefits they saw, and then we'll wrap up with any questions that you may have. We will be happy to answer questions along the way, so please feel free to put them, if you can, please put them in the Zoom chat if you can. We will be trying to monitor both the best we can and answer questions as we go through. But if you can put them in the Zoom chat, it's a little bit easier for us. If you can't, we'll be looking at the session chat as well. So with that, I just wanted to do a brief introduction of myself and let Craig introduce himself. Again, my name is Rob Mowat. I'm one of the directors with MyPro. Been with MyPro for about 4 years. Been working with ERP platforms for about 10, and including 4 years at PeopleSoft, in addition to my 4 years here at MyPro. And then the balance of my career has been in the IT business, both on the technology and non-ERP application side. So I'm happy to be presenting today. Craig, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Craig Oliver. I'm the Director of Public Sector for MyPro Consulting. Similar to Rob, I have about 34 years of experience in the IT services industry. The last 4 years I spent with Oracle, and I've been with MyPro now. My first year anniversary was October 1st. So I'm glad to be a part of the team to continue to support our PeopleSoft customers as we look at providing them implementation services and modernization opportunities for our clients.
Well, happy anniversary, Craig, and thanks. Just wanted to give you a couple of snippets about MyPro. MyPro, we are one of the sponsors for the Dive Deep session. But MyPro is a PeopleSoft specialty consultancy. We were created back in 2005 with based on some put together by some former PeopleSoft executives about the time that Oracle acquired PeopleSoft, and just saw an opportunity to continue to serve the PeopleSoft community. And I'm happy to say we've been doing that consistently for the past 16 years. And quite honestly, we don't see an end in sight. PeopleSoft is still strong. We really like to pride ourselves on our reputation for being customer focused, focusing on doing the best for the customer and making sure that we're supporting you. From a services standpoint, we'll do pretty much anything related to PeopleSoft. We do PUM updates. We do some of the newer technologies, looking at Picasso and Cabana, and of course the OCI optimizations, implementations. We focus on all the major pillars: the financial supply chain, HCM, lease administration. So we've got a pretty strong group of people that we have working with us to support our customers. We've got several sessions, or we've had several sessions, and one more coming up, as you can see here on the right. So if you didn't get an opportunity to and you're interested, you can certainly check those out going forward. So if you have any questions about MyPro or us, feel free to shoot us a message, and we can give you any more information. But we really want to spend the majority of the time focusing in on the content today. So again, what we really want to focus on here, and our goal is to kind of give you a bigger picture look at what you might want to consider and some of the advantages looking at PeopleSoft in the cloud. And again, I mentioned specifically that as we look at this, we're going to be talking more about OCI than other pieces. It's not designed to be a sales pitch. It's designed to be something to consider if you're looking at moving your PeopleSoft environment to the cloud. Here's some things that you can think about, some of the advantages you might see. And then as we get into the second half, when Craig's talking through, you'll see what the experience has been with the state of Oklahoma and how they did it and some of the benefits they saw. You'll look across the Reconnect conference. If you want to do a deep dive in any of the things that we've talked about, there's deep dive sessions on all the technology of OCI. There's a deeper session on the details of the cloud manager. So there's a lot of areas where you can go into deeper, but we wanted to take that step back and really look at just, what are some of maybe more of the business side thoughts of why to make that move. There's many reasons to make that move to the cloud, and we've got a lot of customers that are already running in a cloud environment. We've got many that are considering that, and quite frankly, we've got quite a few that just aren't ready to yet, and they're happy to run on premise. And with PeopleSoft and the support model that they've got, any of those are viable options. So let's dig in and see what we have to share here. So when we're talking about PeopleSoft, you can't not hit the elephant in the room, and that is, what's PeopleSoft going to look like long term? If you saw the opening session, Paco again recommitted to the 10-year rolling window of premium support, and he once again said there's no plans to end that. And again, just if you happen to miss that, when we talk about premium support, it's not just oh, by the way, we'll provide a few things here and there. There's still significant investment going on in the product, as I hope you're seeing. You'll see a lot of new features, new capabilities, new technologies. They continue to invest in the chatbots, which is now the Picasso platform. The cloud manager, trying to make things easier for people that do want to run in the cloud. And then just day-to-day functions in things that come up. Health and safety has been a big issue with COVID recently, a lot of new functions there. So it's not just a matter of, you can kind of run PeopleSoft long-term. No, there's still some serious investment in there, and just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that as you're moving forward. So again, we really want to focus on kind of the benefits of running an Oracle in the cloud, with the emphasis on the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Generally speaking, we think that this is probably the better platform for most people. We know there's individual instances, depending on the platform you're coming from, what your skill sets are. There may be other cloud providers that might be a better option for you. But with the integrated technologies and the things that we're going to be talking through today, I think you'll see that there's a lot of benefits if you're looking at moving PeopleSoft to the cloud. The Oracle Cloud infrastructure is a very strong platform for you to be considering. So why make the move? There's a million reasons, a lot of things to consider when you're making the move. when you think about it, a lot of people are really thinking, if I move to the cloud, there's a few overriding reasons. One is I'm going to save money. If I don't have to maintain my infrastructure, if I don't have to keep that investment, if I don't have to keep investing in my people to stay current on what's the newest platform, what's the newest, Windows fix, what's the newest database fix, I can save some money doing that. Same thing rolls around in an area of efficiency. If I'm maintaining my own data center, I've got a plan for my peaks and valleys. In most cases, I'm planning for my peaks, which means it's not the most efficient way to run my infrastructure. I'm buying for the peaks, and if things slow down a little bit, I can't just roll that back. I've got to keep going. And then a lot of people just look at it, it's the first step in the cloud evaluation. I think I need to move to the cloud, but I'm not really sure. So how do I do this? And you'll see in another slide here, there's different ways that you can explore the cloud without jumping in headfirst and making sure you're doing that. So again, when you really think about it, you're trying to increase and take advantage of new innovations. And most people want to focus in on the business side of their organizations and not so much the technology. So let's allow the technology, let somebody else manage that. You can scale up and scale down when you're looking at the cloud environments, but you're really controlling and you're really focusing in on the business side of that. So those are some of the major reasons that we're seeing people making this move. And Craig, feel free to chime in here if you've got any comments or if I've overlooked something.
You're doing great, Rob. Thanks.
Appreciate that. So if you look at some of the benefits here, and full disclosure on this slide, I've picked these from different presentations and some of the things that Oracle has shared. So this isn't you will save all of these, but these are snippets that we've seen from other customers that have shared these types of savings and performances and things like that. We've seen customers save as much as 75% in infrastructure costs. And again, that goes back to what I was talking about previously. If I'm running everything on site, I have to make sure that I'm structured for the peaks in my workload. End of the year processing could be, end of the year payroll, could be quarter end closings, year end closings, things like that. If you're running in the cloud environment, you've got that ability to scale up and scale down, and you're only paying for what you use. So that's where that infrastructure cost comes from. And other customers may have not done the full documentation, and they're projecting some pretty good overall cost savings, just because in addition to the hardware and the infrastructure, you've got that same piece on the support side. My people or my team don't have to sit there focusing on, what's the next database upgrade that I have to apply. They can really look at bigger picture things and how can I most effectively manage my database. So you're allowing your team to focus in on higher value areas as opposed to the day-to-day care and feeding of a server or an infrastructure. System performance, again, just because the cloud platform and specifically OCI is tuned for PeopleSoft and there's tools that are specifically there, you start seeing some of the performance gains. And again, a couple of different customers have shown 20 to 45% gains in performance. The other piece that comes into play, because you look at the technical side and it says, that's great, but if I'm doing this wholesale change and moving from my traditional on-premise environment to the cloud, what does that do to my end users? And the reality is it has a minimal, if any, impact on them. You may have a URL change or something simple like that, just because you may want to do some parallel testing and can't have but that's not going to be something that's going to have a huge impact. And then you are going to want to engage your users for some of the testing. That's going to, again, be some of the power users as you make that shift. It's a pretty smooth transition as you make the shift from on-premise to the cloud, but you're still going to want to test it. That's just a good business practice. And then from a company standpoint, we're hearing this more and more as one of the drivers. We just want to get out of the data center business. Our business is manufacturing or, consulting or banking or, whatever your business is. It's not data center management. Now, granted, a lot of organizations have gotten really good at it because they've had to, but you're really starting to figure out what is it you want to do as a business. And if you're not gaining that strategic advantage in the data center area, then maybe that's something you can consider, not doing and focus in on the business side of it. The benefits kind of sitting behind that, and the reason a lot of people are getting some of these benefits really come from a couple of the tools that are out there. So when you look at OCI as a whole, Oracle is really customizing and designing this in the PeopleSoft environment to help PeopleSoft run more efficiently. There's a product that's just part of the cloud environment, the OCI environment, called Cloud Manager. If you want to get into the details there's a separate session that went into the deep dive of all the capabilities, kind of shows you how to do things and what to do. But really what the Cloud Manager does is it allows you to manage the environment. I've talked a couple of times about the scaling up and down. Cloud Manager, it looks similar to the fluid interface with the tiles. It gives you that control center, the control of a single screen to be able to go in, scale your servers up or down. It allows you to manage your PUM and your people tool updates. So as those become available, you can manage the application and the updates through the Cloud Manager, which again simplifies that process. The actual move of environments, when you make that move, you set up OCI. The Cloud Manager can help you actually do the lift and shift from your on-premise to your cloud environment. And the Cloud Manager makes that easier to do. And then just, again, the big benefit is being able to provision servers on demand. So if I need to spin up a new server to run an environment for a short period of time, maybe I've got some testing I need to do, or some, I've got a hiring spike and I need to scale up a training server so I can get my folks on board and trained well. You've got that ability to quickly provision a new server. And then when you're done, you can take that offline. That feeds back into the cost savings. So again, I'm not buying for my peak workloads. I'm just out there. If I need it for a peak, I can spin it up. I only pay for that peak time that I use. And then when it's done, I shut it down and I'm ready to go. So those are some of the bigger benefits, the results that customers are seeing and some of the reasons behind why they're seeing that. So if you look at moving to the cloud, what is it you want to do? There's a lot that you can do here. You can decide what's best for you in your organization in doing that. As you'll see with Oklahoma, they pretty much jumped in and pretty much did the whole thing. So they're doing their tests, they're running production, they've got their backups running there, and then they've got some complementary technologies that are not necessarily PeopleSoft, but they're cloud-based technologies that they're using in conjunction with PeopleSoft. So again, if you want to, some people are taking a strategy of kind of dipping your toes in the water. Let's put our development or put a couple of environments up there just to play around with it. It could be a development and test environment, but still keep our core business running and our production system running on site where I'm more comfortable. Others have taken that full step and let's move everything to the cloud. And then you've got that whole ability, once you're in the cloud, you've got the ability to do your backups, your disaster recovery, and look at those options. And of course, you've got the traditional Oracle technologies to do that, a DataGuard, or I'm not a technology specialist there, but I know I've got DataGuard and a couple of the tools there to allow that backup to be done in the cloud. And then once you get there, and again, Craig will talk more on this, but you've got that ability to start utilizing other tools that might be available on the cloud, whether they're Oracle or non-Oracle tools, but things like the Oracle Analytics Cloud, or looking at the chatbot and the Picasso platform, things that run specifically in PeopleSoft or can run specifically in PeopleSoft, but also have application outside. So that's when you start getting into, what else can you do once you're in the cloud, and it starts giving that ability to utilize complementary capabilities. And the beauty about all of this is, that center box there that says you still maintain the PeopleSoft control. Whatever you decide to do, again, if you just want it in the dev environment, you want the production, if you want everything there, you're controlling PeopleSoft, and you're allowing somebody else, in this case Oracle, to maintain the infrastructure, and that's what they do. That's what they do quite well. So, Craig, any other thoughts on this, or based on your experiences?
No, Rob, no additional points here, but we do have a question in the chat.
Okay.
So let me share that with you before we move on. And it's from Paul Thomas. And Paul's comment is, OCI looks like it still requires system admin and DBAs to implement and maintain. So are these human cost savings versus on-prem, or are human support needs comparable?
There's still going to be some requirement that the system admin and the DBA are going to be more related to PeopleSoft specific functions. As part of OCI, Oracle is maintaining the infrastructure environment. You've got the ability to, and we'll talk about this in a later slide, you've got the ability to control as much as you want in the cloud. So you've got the ability to utilize Oracle for the DBA and the system admin rules if you'd like. You can maintain those. So you're going to see some personnel savings there. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to eliminate those, but you do have options to do that. So again, it kind of gets back to what is it you still want to maintain, and for lack of a better word, it can be a sliding scale. If you want to take on more of yourself, then you can just take on some of you can just utilize the base OCI environment. If you want to allow Oracle or a partner to do more of that management, you've got the ability to do that, and then have your team focus more on PeopleSoft specific things. So I hope that answers your question, Paul. If you want to dive deeper into that, I can get you in touch with some of our technical folks who can get into more of the specifics on who does what. But at a high level, you've got the ability to, you're going to offload some of that work to Oracle, but not necessarily all of it, but you can. So I don't want to say it depends answer, but it gives you some flexibility there. So I hope that answers your question. So what happens once you move to OCI? What does your environment look like, and where do you go from there? So if you decide to make that, basically what you're doing is you're going from a manage yourself, and in most mid-sized to large organizations have internal service level agreements on responding to issues and keeping your system up and response times and things like that. But if you make that move into OCI, that's what's driving. That's really what's driving it. So OCI is going to give you, or Oracle is going to give you a service level on response times, going to give you service levels on uptimes and things like that. So that's going to be built into your agreements. But what it really does is it starts with the availability of the system, making sure that that's up and running. You've got the day-to-day management of the structure. Performance is largely managed by Oracle from an infrastructure standpoint. Your specific PeopleSoft environment, how you have that set up and what you're doing with that could impact performance, but the underlying infrastructure is going to be managed there. Configuration updates, technology updates, software updates on the infrastructure, again, are going to be managed by Oracle, whereas you're going to still be doing that with the PeopleSoft environment. New releases, so you get new releases of the underlying infrastructure. The other piece that falls into there on the release update, PeopleTools, if you're not aware, I'm sure many of you are, but PeopleTools gets released on OCI ahead of its availability in the for on-premise downloads. So you get to take advantage of some of those new capabilities much sooner than you can, or at least start testing them. Even if you don't want to be the leading edge person that implements that day one, you've got the ability to start doing the testing and start exploring what some of those capabilities are in people tools there. And then incident management, you've got your frontline access to Oracle. So if you do happen to have an infrastructure problem, you're tied right to the manufacturing support. So they'll manage that through the problem resolution. And then any change management that you have is going to be managed there. So the title of this slide should probably be slightly different. As I was looking at this morning, it really should be Oracle. Oracle helps run your infrastructure, runs the infrastructure for your enterprise apps. With OCI, you don't natively get Oracle running PeopleSoft for you. That's something that you're still in charge of, and you can decide how you want to manage that. But it should be really the infrastructure side of PeopleSoft that's running on there. So just a little twist on the title of this slide. And then the other piece that falls in there, because Oracle is the manufacturer of PeopleSoft, they run the OCI environment. When they want to have new technologies and new capabilities to help and more efficiently run PeopleSoft, they just embed it into the cloud manager, and you just get that. That's just it's part of your OCI subscription. There's no additional cost to that. And the goal there, if you heard some of the early roadmap sessions, it's really to continue to help make the running of PeopleSoft more efficient, looking at ways to automate PUM updates and people tool updates. Things like that are getting built in and embedded into the cloud manager. As you start looking at autonomous databases, again, what impact does that have on PeopleSoft, and how can you take advantage of some of those tools to better run PeopleSoft? Again, when you're running that whole environment under the Oracle umbrella, those things tie together really nice. And as new innovations happen on the technology side, you get those. I can't say by default, because it's an intended design point to make sure that those have the impact on PeopleSoft as well. So it's not just an, oh, by the way, PeopleSoft happens to run better because it's an Oracle product. There's things that are specifically being designed on the Oracle technologies that will help you run your PeopleSoft environment much more efficiently. So that's kind of the first half of this, and running through what OCI looks like, things that you might gain from utilizing it, some considerations when you're looking to move forward, kind of what's your comfort level, what do you want to do, what are your goals. Are there any questions at this point before we jump into the Oklahoma story? All right, with that, I am going to go ahead and pass the reins over to my friend Craig. And Craig's going to talk you through some of the experiences that the state of Oklahoma had in their move into OCI. Craig,
thank you, Rob.
It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Rob. So the next few slides, we're going to talk about the state of Oklahoma and their experience with updating PeopleSoft, modernizing the application, and then eventually moving it to OCI. The state of Oklahoma is a very near and dear customer. I've worked with them for the past 6 years, and I was leading the team who actually helped to modernize their application and move them to OCI, and actually sold them the tenancy that allowed them to make all of this happen, along with the modernization work that we did for them during my tenure at Oracle. So I'm very happy to see the state of Oklahoma mature the way that they have, and we're going to show a few examples, of how they went about doing it, why they did it, and what the outcomes are going to be for the future. Rob, can you go to the next slide, please? So when you look at taking on a project of this nature, obviously there's a lot that goes into it. And we talk about business process and the knowledge transfer model. It was truly a collaborative effort when we started with the state of Oklahoma to begin to look at the transition to moving to OCI. Obviously a lot of planning. We really started out with looking at the inventory of what they had from a PeopleSoft perspective as it relates to financials. There were quite a number of modules that they had there that had not been implemented. There were quite a number of modules that they didn't have that they needed to acquire. And so it really took a lot of collaborative planning with not only the state, but with the Oracle teams. When I say teams, there were multiple teams within Oracle that supported this engagement. And so we really had to define the swim lanes. We really had to look at those personas that were going to lead the charge, not just from a project management perspective, but from a development perspective, and really work with the client to figure out how they could support this endeavor as well, because one of the main reasons that they went this route is because of the lack of resources and just not having the skill sets and the capabilities within their organization to do this. So, the participation that was, it was extremely important for all of us to kind of work on a daily basis to collaborate with each other to plan this opportunity. And we started this with what we called a proof of concept. So back in the beginning of 2019, we basically told the state, we want to show you an idea. We want to do a proof of concept for you. So we stood up a tenancy in OCI. We moved an instance of PeopleSoft. We upgraded the instance, and then we began with a POC. It was a 90-day proof of concept, and it was successful. And once we had a measure of success, then the decision was made that we would start with the state, and there would be, as you'll see in our slides, multiple agencies that would come on after the fact. But we started that project in the fall of 2019, and happy to say that the state went live about 14 months later. Next slide, Rob. So as we go through the story, we're going to talk a little bit about the past and where they were, the journey for the transformation, where they are today, and what we see how PeopleSoft's going to work for them in the near future, as we touch on these points throughout the presentation. Next slide. So again, as I mentioned earlier, pre-2018, the state of Oklahoma was kind of in a bad spot. They were on 9.2, but they were on Plum Image 5. They were on-prem. They had hardware that was coming up that needed to be refreshed. Just, not the best place where their financial applications should be. And quite frankly, they kind of had a Band-Aid on it. And there was just no real opportunity for them to continue to move in the fashion in which they did. So it was imminent that they needed to make a change. And in addition to where the state is, because if you think of the state of Oklahoma, they're a consolidated state. So they have multiple agencies that were on disparate legacy financial systems that were riding on an old AS400 platform, homegrown systems that were built probably in the late 70s. And so the desire for them to centralize and the desire for them to standardize their financial system for the state overall was a part of the roadmap that we had put together for them to start the endeavor, which obviously, as I had mentioned earlier, led to the proof of concept for the state, but then there was several agencies that were to follow. And we've been actively engaged with multiple agencies now, because now that the state has gone live, there are about 5 other agencies that are in line to move forward, to move to the cloud. We've just started with the Department of Health Services about a month and a half ago, and then the Department of Transportation will be next. And then there's multiple agencies that are to follow that lead. Next slide. So getting back a little bit into the past, and again, what was the compelling event for them to look at moving to OCI and going to more of a managed services platform? And as you're looking at this slide and reading these bullets, you can kind of see what what's going on there within Oklahoma as far as changes that needed to be made, constant upgrading and the capacity management. They were trying to manage all this themselves, and quite frankly, just simply did not have the resources to keep things current, hence why they were on Pump Image. When we started the project in 2019, they were on Pump Image 11. We took them to Pump Image 33 once we started the full-blown modernization and the additional modules that we implemented for them. And now they're currently residing on, I believe it's Pump Image 38, with looking to upgrade on a consistent basis as the new pump images become available. Again, one of the values and the benefits of being in OCI, because those refreshes and those pump upgrades kind of happen seamlessly with the support of their managed services partner, which is Oracle, that's supporting the application, which resides in OCI. So a number of things that were going on in the at the state, as far as, you know, giving them the ability to focus on what they do best, from managing the government relationships there, focusing on business issues that were non-PeopleSoft, and just, you know, basically simplifying their processes on PeopleSoft because of not having to, you know, manage the day-to-day situation as they did in the past. Next slide. So again, you know, we see where they were, but, you know, what drove the change? And these are little quotes that came from several executive stakeholders within the state of Oklahoma, because they just, again, were having difficulties finding the right path to continue to manage and move their PeopleSoft applications forward. They're looking at standardizing to a statewide approach. Again, multiple agencies kind of doing their own thing on old legacy systems. And it was just really a consolidation dream, if you will, right? Because one of the beautiful things in Oklahoma is that with some recent changes within the governor's cabinet members, they were all about trying to figure out how to modernize the state's major applications. So for the state of Oklahoma, it was about timing as well, because they have a very good roadmap and a very good approach to legacy modernization. And so obviously PeopleSoft is just one of many applications that the state is looking to move forward with. And so it's been a really good journey up to this point for the change. We've had 2 successful implementations of PeopleSoft on OCI. And as I indicated, one's in flight now, and they're anticipating 3 more agencies to come on board within the next 3 to 5 years. So we really have a very good opportunity to continue to support this customer as they adopt the changes, and they can definitely see the value of the approach that was put before them, and working with their partners, because there are multiple partners that support the state of Oklahoma, and that it takes quite a bit of an effort from a collaborative approach to make sure that we're getting them where they need to be. Next slide, Rob. So, you know, how were they successful in adopting the new technology? Because as we know, change is not easy, and sometimes there's resistance to change because of the unknown. But again, working with them as a true partner and in a spirit of collaboration, really helping to understand the business requirements, because, you know, all things, and when we start projects, some of them can be challenging at first, but in addition to the challenge that comes with the implementation, the challenge of not only resources, the challenge of change, the challenge of getting people to accept the change. We held many planning sessions with the client to get them comfortable about the technology. With working with Oracle, there's been a lot of education around not just OCI, but the changes that are being made within the PeopleSoft arena, as it were. And then just really, you know, trying to understand, there was many fit gap sessions that we had with them, so that we could make sure that we understood the business process, what was important to them. And so what this has done for many of the partners that are supporting the state of Oklahoma is kind of really putting together a strong partnership and a really strong roadmap to help them to adapt to the processes of the new technologies, because some of it's out of the box, but some of it isn't. One of the challenges that the state of Oklahoma had for one of their, for the financial side of the house, is that they had over 300 customizations to PeopleSoft. And so again, a lot of time spent with the client on planning and developing the correct plan, and making sure that the technology worked for them as they adapted to the changes moving forward. I'll pause here for a moment just to check to see if there's any questions. I don't see any in the Zoom chat. Are there any questions, Rob, in the Quest chat?
No, we don't have any questions just now. So if